Well, welcome again to our webinar. This webinar is What's New in Creo Parametric 2.0, up to double your design productivity compared to Pro Engineer. I'd like to give you a little background before we start. The webinar will be available online afterwards at designworldonline.com, and we will also email you the information on it. Give us a little bit of time to get it up. It won't be instantaneous. We're going to have questions and answers at the end of the presentation. However, you'll see that there's a panel to ask questions during these webinars, so go ahead and put your questions down. That way we'll have them lined up for after Todd is done presenting. And the hashtag for this webinar for Twitter is #DW-Webinar. And we are, of course, very happy to have you tweet about the webinar, particularly if you find that there is interesting information on it. My name is Evan Yaris, and I'm a senior editor with Design World magazine. I've been in the CAD industry for a little while. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I beat him. He's been in it 25 years. I've been in it 30 years. So I was in the industry before PTC came along and changed the world of parametric design. I'm very happy to be here, and I'd like to introduce you to Todd Kraft from PTC. Now, Todd has been with PTC for over 16 years. He's a senior application engineer, and he spends his days actually talking to real-world users of Pro-E and Creo. So he has tremendous experience in what it takes to get the job done. Now, if you're an existing Pro-E or Creo 1.0 user, I think you're going to be pleased with the work PTC has done with Creo Parametric 2.0. So I'm going to turn the webinar over to Todd, and he's going to tell you more about the new version of Creo 2.0.
Okay, thank you, Evan. Yeah, exactly. If I think about it, I've been at PTC for 16 years and 1 day. So yesterday was my 16th year anniversary. So today we're going to talk about Creo, and specifically about what's new in Creo Parametric 2.0, and not just the real fancy, things that you might not want to or think about adopting right away. We're going to talk about the common, everyday things that you will see and use right away with Creo Parametric 2.0. And specifically, what I'm going to do is make the case today that by the time I'm completed with my presentation today, you will notice and have a good understanding of how you can double your design productivity using Creo Parametric 2.0 versus Wildfire 5.0. Okay, we're going to do a lot of the basic things, like talk about the user interface. We'll do one major new capability, which is Freestyle. And we'll do assembly performance. We'll talk about the adoption aids we have with Creo Parametric 2.0. And then we'll just also understand that there's a lot of things I'm not showing you today. But we're going to, again, focus on the common things like sketching, like measuring, cross-sectioning, assemblies, sheet metal, 3D annotation. These are the things that are things that people do every day, and they're very familiar with these things and how they do them in Wildfire 5. So what we did with these 8 key areas is that we had an external person go through an exercise of comparing Wildfire 5 with Creo Parametric 2.0. So they got the stopwatch out, got the mouse travel tools out, and clicks and counted menus, and really compared, going through the same exercises with these 2 tools. CAD is somewhat subjective in many ways, and if you look at the Olympics now, this recently, you look at the gymnastics and diving, it's very subjective, but we're trying to get really objective here and get a stopwatch out. If you say you're faster than me, let's go out to the track and let's prove it. And you know the times, and you can look at the comparison. So we're looking at real objective and tangible statistics here today, and looking at a comparison between Wildfire 5 and Creo Parametric 2.0. And even, we're saying Wildfire 5, but I think there's probably a number of people on the phone also within Wildfire 4, and that's very similar comparison as well. Okay, so I'm going to go through 6 of these comparisons, and talk about them and show each of them as well. So the first one is on the ribbon-based UI. So here we have obviously the ribbon that you will notice in drawing mode in Wildfire 5, but this is throughout the entire product now in Creo Parametric. Okay, so no matter what you're doing, you're going to see the UI that's ribbon-based, and you're also going to find a really fancy, nice little tool over here called the Command Finder. You'll find, so if you ever have trouble finding something possibly that you might be looking for, the Command Finder will find it every time. So what I want to do is go ahead and show you a couple of things. The first thing we're going to do is show you a little video on the ribbon UI. So again, we're going to go ahead and show you a comparison between the two. Okay, so the way that this is set up is we have Creo Parametric on the left side and we have Wildfire 5 on the right, doing similar tasks and again keeping track of how we do things. So first in the UI, you notice again the ribbon UI is throughout the whole product. No longer do you have the top menu items, but you have now the ribbon that has these commands basically organized into specific areas based on what your task is going to be. So every time you switch a tab, you're presented with the commands that are relevant to that area. The ribbon also allows you to completely make your own custom UI. You can completely make it your own. Okay. So I mentioned also the Command Finder. So if you ever can't find something, you just go over to the Command Finder over there and just start typing into the window what you might be looking for. You notice you're actually typing parametric, and you'll find like where that might be located at. If you hover over it, you'll see it in the ribbon, and you can actually execute it from there too. This is compared to the older technique, the menu mapper, a separate UI, kind of bring it up and could do a little comparison. Now you're always going to have that Command Finder on every screen of Creo to find out if you've lost your way and you need some help in finding something. Another great enhancement next to the Command Finder is the Learning Connector. And what this enables you to do is it connects you to all the online help. It connects you to PTC's support. It also connects you to a bunch of tutorials. And it also, lastly, connects you to, if you have a PTC University license, it connects you to all the e-learning. So again, you can get quick help on anything you want to possibly learn more about when you're working in Creo. The Quick Access toolbar is next. It's in the main window, and you can customize it. You can get to the quick access of views and displays of datums and so forth. And then we'll basically very, very quickly touch on the measure tool here too. If you ever want to measure something, you have a brand new interface for measuring. And this thing is fantastic. You're going to get all the measuring commands all in one spot. And we're going to focus on this a little bit more later. I mentioned earlier you can customize the ribbon. You just right-click on the ribbon and say Customize it. You're presented with all the different commands and possibilities that are there. You have the default way that we build the product, but you can take and remove stuff and some commands you may not use all the time, and make up your own tabs as well and make it really how you would deal with it. Lastly, if I click on this little feature here, I can go ahead and very quickly modify and edit it real time. No longer is it a couple of processes to do this. You can do it all really real time and get the feedback right away. Okay. So let's go back to our screen here. Now I mentioned about these statistics, and if considering on the left side you have the new workflows, the toolbars, the Command Finder, and this consistency throughout the entire product. What we have is we've counted the mouse travel and the mouse clicks and the menus opened, and what you see there comparing Wildfire 5 to Creo Parametric 2.0. 33% less mouse travel, 18% less mouse clicks, and 30% less menus open just in the user interface and a couple of procedures. And then if you compare them just by time, it's 20% faster than Pro Engineer Wildfire 5. Here's a quote from Damian Castillo from Hensley Industries. The users find Creo Parametric easier to use than Wildfire 5 by a long shot, and especially the reworked workflows and common areas like sketching, part modeling, assembly modeling, sheet metal, and drawing. It's really increased their design productivity. So again, he realized and focused on those common areas where people spend their time the most. That's where they're getting the biggest benefit. So the next section, number 2 here, is improved sketching. Okay, so let me bring up that area next. So again, a head-to-head comparison in sketching. What we'll see on the left side is that you can get into Sketcher very quickly, just a couple of mouse clicks. And we have some common new tools, like a centered rectangle is one of them. You can very quickly get that sketch on there. You can also add or remove material very fast, just depending on which way you pull. You don't have to navigate to the dashboard to get access to that. You can also modify the section directly. If you compare that to Wildfire 5, you're really using 2 commands versus 1. You don't have to leave the feature to do this kind of stuff. If you want to add taper to your extrude, that's now there. You can add taper in either direction, positive or negative. So you're adding draft and extrude at the same time. Okay, whereas today in Wildfire 5, you're doing it in 2 different features today. Okay, so next thing is that in Sketcher, what I think is interesting is you have 2 modes. You have a construction mode and then a geometry mode. So in construction mode, I can just go ahead and start sketching stuff. If I'm missing a reference, I can right-click and add a reference really fast. I can change my orientation really quick. So these are things that you would have to go up to the dashboard or somewhere else to actually open a dialog box to get to in Wildfire 5. Now you can very quickly just do it without leaving the modeling window. It saves a lot of time doing that way. Again, when you're in construction mode, you're going ahead and modifying all these entities that are just kind of dashed. You can now switch to geometry mode. Now I'm sketching real geometry. There's 2 little entities here. There's 2 lines, and make also a couple of arcs. So you just toggle between the 2. So very nice workflow there. Once I'm done sketching a loop, I have now a nice little preview. It's going to show me what this feature will look like. And then I can also drag it around, and I can also drag the section around. Again, you can't do that in Wildfire 5. You actually have to leave the feature to do that. But I can actually drag the section still around while I'm in here dynamically. So let's go ahead and go to the highlights or the statistics on this. Again, one of the big things I think is adding references really quickly. The tapered extrude, just fast in-context sketching. Comparing the mouse travel, mouse clicks, and menus open, it's almost 50% on all of those. So you can see how much better the workflow is because you've saved a ton of time in movement of the mouse and menus open by being able to do things a lot faster. So if we, again, that all contributes to 28% faster than Wildfire 5.0. Okay, the third section we'll talk about is super fast handling of large assemblies. Okay, so let me bring up that video here. I'm doing videos because it's just a little more efficient than doing it all live. But if you ever want a live demo, we're always available to do those too. One of the biggest enhancements you'll see in Creo Parametric 2.0, and assembly specifically, that customers are the most excited about, is the ability to do what's called a lightweight graphics option. So I can open up a very lightweight graphics option, or graphics rep, and this is using some Creo view technology that, if I want to open up a master rep of an assembly, it would take maybe, a few minutes to open up a large assembly, but the graphics rep is only going to be a few seconds. And if I want to change that representation, maybe exclude a few things, but I see all of it. I see the whole thing. That's just a huge benefit. Or I could say make this part the master, and it makes that frame the master rep really quickly. But I can do things all very fast. Here's a nice little enhancement here. I can pick on a component and say locate it in the model tree. And then boom, it really quickly finds it in the model tree. You can't get that in Wildfire 5 right now. You also have drag and drop in the model tree too. I can drag a couple components and move them into a new subassembly. Again, no menus to open, no dialog boxes, just drag and drop them where you want to put them. Another new capability in assembly is the ability to make a new kind of a new subset of your assembly information. This will not affect the top level assembly at all. I wanted to take this stuff and I want a new representation. I'll pick on a couple of components. I can select them, or I can drag a mouse box around them, and then I can do a new subset really quickly. And then here I have that. And then also one of the new enhancements in Creo is 3D sectioning, which is dynamic sectioning. You can see you can make a plane or use a plane or use one of the default planes and then go ahead and dynamically drag it around. The section tool allows you to control the hatching, so you can see it very, very clearly what the hatching is. You can also modify the hatching. You can also look for interferences, and you can control the color of the interference and find out very clearly if anything's interfering in that cross section. If you think there's an interference, you can click on the 2D preview, and you can also see that cross section interference too. You can see it in red there. So since it's interfering, I can go ahead and edit that component placement, and then just give it a little more distance between the two, and then we'll see our cross section update dynamically and show you that there's no more interference there anymore. So you can quickly resolve it. Again, very nice enhancement inside of Creo with cross-sectioning. So if we take a look at some of the statistics in this, the highlights, mouse travel was reduced by 56%, mouse clicks by 45%, and menus opened reduced by 50%. So again, 30% faster than Wildfire 5.0. And some of the big enhancements there is that new lightweight graphics representation. Again, using the Creo view technology, and it's been said, for a few years, why do I have to wait for this assembly to open when Creo view can open it in 5 seconds? Well, we've taken that graphics information and that ability and kind of put it into Creo Parametric. A new 3D dragger is there for easy assembly, and then we also have just increased performance. Another quote from Damien here: there's noticeable improvement with large assemblies. We're about 40% more productive, as the new lightweight graphics representation makes loading, navigating, exploring assemblies super fast. So he's actually getting more production than our test showed as 30%. All right, the next one is a new capability in Creo called a Freestyle command. So let me just bring up this next video. This is number 4. And this is a new capability. So with new capabilities, it's difficult to compare to Wildfire 5 because it's not capable of it in Wildfire 5. So we'll just kind of talk about that at the end. But you start with a primitive shape like a cube or a sphere, and then you can go ahead and make this into a bigger model by picking on faces, edges, and vertices, and being very freeform and dragging this around. Okay, you can control a ton of this stuff, a ton of the different faces. You can add new faces on the sides like this, and what we're going to actually create is a watering can. So you can pick on an individual face and rotate it or drag it. Okay, you have individual control if you wish to. And then in this case, actually, we're going to make a handle. So you can take those two faces and use a connect command, and it'll actually bring those two together and connect them. On the Wildfire 5 side, you're going to be using Wildfire 5 capabilities, which is going to be surfacing with curves and surfaces, eventually making it into solids eventually. So difficult to compare the two because you have a parametric method that you have a lot more features versus this freeform freestyle attempt, which has just really one feature in this case. Okay, so we're going to work on the neck of this watering can. You can add geometry. and split it if you want to. You can also do symmetric style here, so I can actually pick on half the mesh and then say it's symmetric, and then half the mesh goes away. Okay, so it's mirrored right now. You can break the mirror later if you want to. But now you're just basically grabbing edges, grabbing points and faces, and really just tugging and pulling until your desired shape is created. The only parametric control you have at this point is really just some access to planes where you can align stuff with planes. Okay, and there'll be more coming along the line, but down the road. But that's the basic control you have at this point. But you're using a whole different set of methodology that you just don't know about or use today in Creo. Again, if we kind of keep an eye on the progress in Wildfire 5, again, we're going to be doing things like curves and editing and making a skin, using multiple planes, and so forth. But you're going to have a ton of control on that side that you don't have over on the Parametric 2.0 side, but we'll kind of look at that later. You can open up a face like that on the watering can there. If I want to make the watering can a little fatter, a little wider, I just drag on those surfaces and pull them out. Okay, on the top, I want to have an entry point to actually fill the can up. I'll pick on those, just pull that up a little bit, and then remove those surfaces. Just hit delete, and then there it goes. There's my opening. All tangent, all nice and perfectly conformed. On the bottom, this can is going to sit on a flat surface, so we'll just go ahead and pick on some surfaces and say planarize, and then I'll actually make it flat in the bottom as well. So actually we'll conform to that plane in the bottom. Once we're satisfied with that, we can move on. Again, on the Wildfire 5 side, you have, again, building your design intent with curves and surfaces and that type of work, that methodology. If you want to change the handle here, this is how you do it. You just go ahead and make that handle a little skinnier, and then you can go ahead and grab on a couple of these edges, one edge on the bottom, and then drag that in both the X and Y there. And then also that you can control the edge on the top too. And just tug that, and just until you think it looks right. One thing new in Creo Parametric 2.0 is the ability to make a finer mesh with one button pick. So I can go ahead and just say I want to double the mesh or quadruple the mesh, and then there it goes. It makes it a lot more finer. And then you can go ahead and again pick on a string of nodes, of edges there, just by using the control key and pick on the first and the last. And you can make a bunch of little finger grips here for somebody to hold on to this. Again, very simple. Now I can go ahead and go back to the original mesh when I'm ready. And there's my concept design. So compare the two, you have a huge difference in time, but we'll talk about that in a second here. So look at the statistics here. In that concept model, we have difficult to really compare. This is really the gymnastic, subjective, judge of what result would you get. But if you try to build both of them with somebody proficient, you're going to get this kind of time difference in building this concept model. And if you look at this, you have a 92% less time. So for building a concept of a watering can, you could make a case here. I could build 10 of those in Freestyle versus 1 in Wildfire 5. That's a big difference. So you can make freeform shapes, directly work with the 3D shape. And this subdivision modeling is right inside of Creo. A lot of customers will actually go to a third-party product here and do this kind of work. But the nice thing about this is you have it inside of Creo, and you also have a very high quality engineered surfaces you can machine and work from, just like you would build geometry, the old-fashioned way with curves and surfaces, like you do in Wildfire 5. A quote here from Ray Kurland of Technicom: Creo Freestyle was one of the many product announcements that struck me as fascinating. Just the idea of having incredible ID software as a freebie. Yeah, did I mention this is free? This is a free feature inside of Creo. With Creo Parametric was one of the I wanted to explore further. We recommend that users who do any industrial design begin using Freestyle right away. So let's just talk about one thing here. You know, is Freestyle for everybody? Yes and no. If you want to make concept models, if you want to make rapid prototype models, then this is absolutely a great way to get that work done. If you want supreme control over curves and surfaces and geometry, and you want to do it in a parametric method, that's fine. That's completely possible still. Everything you've done in Wildfire 5, all the tools that make Pro Engineer what it is today, with just incredible, robust, powerful modeling tools, all those tools all exist in Creo Parametric 2.0. But if you want another tool, possibly maybe another feature to make a Freestyle feature, you have that approach as well, okay? But the Freestyle method is, again, it's a much more free form with less parametric control than you have today with traditional methods. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I got that across. Okay, next is sheet metal design. So this is our fifth one, and we'll play that one next. So comparing these two from Creo Parametric 2 to Wildfire 5, first we have an automatic preview window, which gives you a flat pattern preview, shows you if there's any interferences. That's a really nice enhancement. So if we modify the size of those cuts, we'll see that preview update and show us there's no more interference. Also within that sub window, we have a button there that gives you the bounding box dimensions. That's awesome. You don't have to make a separate measurement for that. It gives you that right away. Also a new way to make a bend feature. You just go ahead and just snap a line on there. You're just basically grabbing a bunch of little snap tools, and then you can type in the values you want. Again, the preview is interactive. You can tell it which direction to go and hit OK. You can also sketch those as well if you wish to. If you want to make a tab up here in this little edge, you can make a flat wall, and then you can control that wall just like you've always been able to control that wall with sheet metal. But you can also add material to the attachment edge. This is something you cannot do today, where I can say I want to add material and go out an inch or so. In Wildfire 5, you have to actually add a second feature for that. So that's cool. You can save a lot of time by being able to do that, those two together in one step. Another enhancement is the ability to do a sketched form. In Wildfire 5, if you want to do a form, you have to make a separate part and then assemble it in and kind of do a remove or a kind of a cutout. But now you can do sketched forms either as piercings or forms. Here's a piercing on the right with a sketch of a circle. This next one we'll do is a sketched form, and we'll use a sketch from the sketcher palette here, a racetrack. Just plop it on there. And then you can put it where you wish to, rotate it, resize it, and then you'll see a little preview of this little form. And then you can control what you want it to look like, which direction to go in or out for the stamping. Again, no second tool for this. You can do it all on the fly. You can add extrude or add draft at the same time, add some taper, add your rounds. So the rounds are all within the tool on both the concave and convex edges, and then hit OK. And there's your form. So really strong tool. Instead of doing it the other way with a second part model, you can now do it as a sketch. So looking at the statistics for sheet metal design, you're going to have Wildfire 5 really being around 50% more time consuming in all of them. So 48% more mouse travel, 3% less mouse clicks in Creo, and then 60% less menus open in Creo. So adding all that together, you have 49% faster in Creo. And really that comes down to the form tool is a big one. Those sketched forms are really fast. Also the 2D flat pattern preview, being able to see that there's overlapping right away without actually having to do a feature of a flat to see that. So you're able to do sheet metal designs a lot faster, and the workflow for all these things too, for corner reliefs, bends and unbends, and just the overall workflow of the UI gives you a lot more productivity. Okay, our last one is on measuring. Okay, so let's get that video queued up. So again, head-to-head comparison and measuring. You might think, you know, what's the deal? Measuring? Why would you use that one? Well, it's actually a pretty significant difference. You know, today in Wildfire 5, if you want to do a measurement, you have to tell it what kind of measurement you want to do, like a distance or a length or an angle or a volume. You have to pick that. But today in Creo, you just have one measure tool that does all of it. Okay, every function is possible here. If I want to do a distance, there it is. And it grabs the surface area of both those tags, and it gives me those tags available. It gives me also a nice result window there too. So I have the area of the surfaces I picked, I have the edge length, and I can grab all those entities, all those numbers, and actually, you know, drag and drop them onto Microsoft Excel because they're all cells. Okay, so here's all my references. I have control over all these tags. Again, if you do this in Wildfire 5, it works well. It gives you the numbers, but you can't move those values around, those actual tags. And then you have to tell it you want to do an area before you have to do an area. But here you just switch around. If I want to remove that one, I can, and then I can do new ones. So you can move from measure to measure to measure very quickly inside of Creo. If I save these measurements, they become part of my window here. So if I close down my my measurement tab, I have those measurements still on my screen, and they stay pretty much where they're supposed to, attached to my model. And I can expand them or collapse them as I wish to. So I have quick access to those measurements that I have created. And then just to show how you can go from measurement to measurement, you can just go simply, let's do a volume. Let's get that volume of the part. Okay, that's great. Let's do an area, and that's next. There's an area of that circle, or that surface. There's an area there. Let's do an edge length. So you can move from measurement to measurement very quickly. And one of the things this video doesn't show is that if you have an assembly and you're very concerned about volume, you can just pick on volume and just pick on 1, 2, 3, or many components at a time and see all the volumes individually. And it actually will total the volume too in the results, which is, I think, fantastic. So that's another nice little tool and measure that you can take advantage of. So again, in measuring highlights, we have reduced mouse travel by 17%, reduced mouse clicks by 26%, and reduced menus opened. That's the big one because you can do it all with one menu, is 65%, which attributes to, again, 10% faster. You know, if you look at the Olympics today in London, and you say I'm 10% faster than you, that's a big deal. That's a monumental difference. That'll be my last comparison to the Olympics, I promise. So again, measuring highlights are very important. It's something that people do all the time, and you're going to see benefits from this everyday common activity. Now, two videos that I'm not going to show that are part of this comparison are cross-sectioning is one of them. And this is the ability to do dynamic cross-sections. I showed that in the assembly video, having a separate 2D window, doing real-time interference detection. You can also create 2D curves in the cross-sections, just a 3D dragger. There's a ton of nice stuff in there. This is a big one because you can't do a 3D dynamic cross-section in Wildfire 5, so you can see some big numbers here. So 48% less mouse travel, 39% less mouse clicks, and 56% less menus open. So 56% faster than Wildfire 5 in cross-section, which makes sense because it's a capability that's not fully there in Wildfire 5, has been very much enhanced in Creo 2.0. And then the last one here is annotation highlights. So anybody that has a drawing list initiative to do, to actually add a lot of the information you put on the 2D print and put them into the model, we've really streamlined this workflow and made it a lot easier than before. So we have predefined annotation planes. We have a really easy and automated method for placement of annotations. There's no more this, layer control and this view manager control. Now it's a lot more streamlined, very easy to do, and you'll see that in these big numbers because we've taken something you can fully do in Wildfire 5, and we really made it just a simple process in Creo. So if you want to do drawing list design, this is the revision to do it in. It really is remarkable how fast you can do it versus Wildfire 5. So again, mouse travel reduced by 70%, mouse clicks reduced by 70%, and menus open by 79%. And that's very believable because Wildfire 5, you can do all the same stuff, but we just didn't have the workflow to the degree that we have it in Creo 2. We really listened to the customer. The tech committee on 3D annotations really did a good job in helping direct the product to being able to do the annotations as quick as we can do them. So 58% faster inside of Creo. So I hope I made the case here on those 8 areas of Sketcher, user experience, assembly, freestyle, annotations, measuring, cross-section, and sheet metal, that overall 51% less travel of mouse, 49% less mouse clicks, 57% less menus opened. So doing the same actions, the same operations in both revisions, you're 73% less time in Creo. So just want to let you know about some things that are available in Creo as well. The Learning Connector is something you should take advantage of. That's right inside of Creo there. You can access all the training from PTC University. You can access the help section in Creo, and also access PTC support as well without going to a second source. You have all the options right there. So you have quick access to tutorials, to the Help Center. We also have a new website. It's not too new anymore, but it's called learningexchange.ptc.com. And this has access to hundreds of Creo Parametric tutorials that are free. So very easy to find and to take a look at tutorials that help explain how things work and how you can get to be more productive using Creo. And just to make sure that nobody has been misled, all the stuff you've done in Pro Engineer for the past, all your models, all your assemblies, your drawings, all of them are perfectly uploadable and openable in Creo. So there should be no loss of data, models, parts, assemblies. Every PRT file, every assembly file, every drawing file, those are completely openable and transferable over to Creo. So if anybody's been told differently, they've been misled. So there's no loss of your design intent, your features, your parameters. All those are fully upward compatible from whatever Pro Engineer release you're coming from. Okay, so those are the best reasons to move to Creo Parametric. I hope I've explained that you can double your design productivity. The UI is fantastic. You're gonna, at the start, you're gonna say, well, what the heck? Where did my menus go? But you're gonna get used to it really quick, and you're gonna understand the streamlined interface is really nice. There's a lot of capabilities here that are new. They're Freestyle. There's improved performance here in assemblies, in graphics performance. We have a lot of nice adoption aids for getting started. And then we haven't touched on a lot of the new capabilities that are here, like Creo Direct and Creo Layout. Creo Simulate has a ton of stuff. Also, flexible modeling is a new capability. So there's a lot of more potential that we haven't even touched on. But I wanted to focus on the common everyday things that are part of Creo for this presentation. So I hope I've explained that well. And I think I'm going to hand it back over to Evan, and he's going to take you through a couple more things.
Thank you. That was a pretty good presentation. I wanted to point out, or I guess reiterate, that what Todd has done is really compared sort of the old way of doing things with Wildfire versus the new way of doing things with Creo. And we had a couple of questions. One from, I believe it was Ken Corby, who was asking about the ribbon interface and pointed out that Wildfire 5.0 has a ribbon interface. That's correct, isn't it, Todd?
Yes, it does in detailing mode. Yes.
Right. So you weren't comparing the ribbon interface. You were against Creo's. You were comparing the old style of Wildfire interface against the current Creo 2.0 interface.
Correct. We didn't have detailing as one of the 8 areas. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, let me ask some of the questions, present some of the questions that were asked during the webinar, and I think some of these are excellent. Both, let's see, I've got to go and look back at my notes here. One of the important questions that was asked by a couple of people is how long does it take somebody to go from knowing Wildfire to being able to learn the Creo 2.0 interface? Pro users tend to be really very good at what they do. They tend to, well, be professionals, I guess. And they're proud of how efficient they are. How long is it going to take a really good pro user to be able to get up to speed on Wildfire, on Creo 2.0, and become really productive?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the user. Obviously, everybody kind of learns at different paces. But I've seen people pick up this very, very quickly. And we've seen this in our PTC user group meetings, where people have kind of kicked the tires for a while on the product. A lot of customers have made the switch, and we've kind of asked them those questions. And then I've done a number, about half a dozen of hands-on workshops around many customers in the Twin Cities here, along with other parts of the country. And I'm seeing very quick adoption. So it's hard to give a solid, tangible number. You know, you're going to be up to speed in 24 and a half minutes. You know, I think of all the releases, you know, going from 2001 Pro E to Wildfire 1, that was a huge difference. And I would say it took a lot of customers a long way. So I think that might be where that question's coming from. But going from Wildfire 5 to Creo Parametric, I think that adoption's even a lot faster, because everyone's getting familiar with this ribbon UI, and it just makes a lot of sense. So I hope I've given a little bit of insight into that.
That's great. There's a couple of questions about Freestyle. One of them is from Don Riley. He asks, an example of finer mesh was shown on the watering can. Can a coarser mesh be done?
The mesh that I guess the coarsest mesh is the one that you create by adding extrudes and adding by dividing the model. So you at any point you can, you know, as you develop this model, let me see, I think you can you delete meshes? No, I don't think you can. You can always go up and back. So I think the most is like 4 times or 8 times, and then you can come back. So you're always going to come back to the mesh that you defined yourself, and that would be called the coarsest mesh.
We have a couple of other questions. Actually, both Dan Schenk and Suzanne Seeley ask essentially the same question of whether you can bring a regular parametric model or standard model into Freestyle and make Freestyle changes.
I wish you could, but you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's from scratch. You build it. I think that's been asked, and that would be really cool. I think that challenge is how do you divide it? Just thinking from the R&D side. But today in Creo Parametric 2.0, you cannot bring a traditional parametric model and make it freestyle. You have to start from scratch with those features.
Good. I want to point out my experience is people often call this type of modeling that's done with Freestyle, they call it clay modeling because it's very much push-pull. And it is a very different experience than working with regular NURBS modeling or parametric modeling. When Dan Schenk asks, when creating a drawing, a 2D drawing, where are the handles for moving dimensions around?
With a freestyle model?
He says a 2D drawing.
I assume he's talking about a freestyle model. Creating a 2D drawing from a parametric model, there's going to be no difference at all from Wildfire 5 to Creo. You're still going to have the same kind of handles and same type of workflow there. But from Freestyle, yeah, you have those vertices of the model, and you can dimension it a little bit, but again, the idea of the Freestyle model is to be very free form. You don't have the control, obviously, of dimensioning it, but you can do a little dimensioning on it. So if you want critical dimensions, larger dimensions, those are possible, but you don't have that. It's not part of the nature of the model.
Okay, here's a sheet metal question from Tracy Phelps. How are bend deductions or bend allowances handled? Can each bend be given a specific value?
Yeah, that's no different than today. You can have a global setting for all your bend allowances, or you can be feature-based as well. It's an option in the dashboard in Wildfire 5. It's an option in the dashboard in Creo Parametric.
Okay. And Dan Schlenk asks, can you click on multiple surfaces and get the total area of the selected surfaces?
Yeah, you can. That's a cool ability there. Just use a control key and pick on a bunch of surfaces, just like you can do volumes of many components at a time.
Mm-hmm. Sachin Jadev, I'm probably mispronouncing it, I hope you'll forgive me, asks is there a new module coming for reverse engineering or creating model from point cloud data?
Not that I know of. In looking at the Creo 3.0 material and 4.0 material that I've seen, I haven't seen anything new with respect to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to jump through these.
Which isn't to say there might be something, but I haven't. I'm not familiar with that. So sorry, Sachin.
Suhas from Alphanar, India asks, he wanted to know if there'd be any coverage of photo rendering and surfacing.
Yeah, not in this presentation. I would. We can certainly do that for him or her, but not at this point.
Okay. Ted Samuelson asked, I think this is a very good question. Do all my vendors need to have Creo 2 to use my model data for machine shops and sheet metal?
The backwards compatibility and all those things is no different. So if you send somebody a Creo 2.0 file that has Wildfire 5, they won't be able to open those models directly unless they've enabled the cross-release interoperability option for that. So that's there if they want, but there's no difference in the way that you would work between Wildfire 5 and Wildfire 4 and Wildfire 3 today. So that's still very similar.
Mm-hmm. Wildfire 5, this is from Don Riley, has features for working with existing models, doing things like warp and twist and such things. Does Creo 2.0 keep those features, or does Freestyle replace them?
No, all the features that are part of warp are all still there.
Mm-hmm. David Schenken also asks, are there any interface enhancements to make better use of dual monitors, separating the model tree from the model window, for example?
Gosh, I thought I seen something on that. I don't know the answer to that question offhand. Making better use of dual monitors, don't know. I'm not sure. I think I haven't tried to separate the model tree out. I think it's connected still, but I'm not sure.
I think David gets the Stump Todd Award for this webinar.
Yeah,
but
he got me.
But for these questions that people asked, PTC will be reviewing them, and if they don't have answers to them right now, we'll be sending out answers afterwards. Yep. So we're not forgetting about them. Matt Kennedy asks, in assembly mode, can you window around multiple objects to select?
Yeah, let's see what kind of work, what kind of case that would be. Window select is not available in Creo 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay. Mike Stroop asks, is part assembly accuracy, absolute and relative, handled in the same way?
Yeah, we haven't changed anything drastically on that. I think for the most part we've been moving to absolute accuracy as a default, and I know that's the default in manufacturing mode, but I think there's no big differences between Wildfire 5 and Creo 2.0 as far as the default out of the box way that we handle. But everything is handled the same way, but at PTC we haven't made any changes that, once you start creating parts in Creo 2, it's not like we've changed the accuracy in the default model. I think it's all the same.
Mm-hmm. Rob Murray asks, can you mirror parts in assembly mode? Sure,
you've always been able to do that.
Yeah, a lot of these are little detailed questions. Another question from Andre Van Voorst is, any improvements in Pro Mechanica?
So I'm trying to keep the context of Wildfire 5 to Creo 2, but since even Wildfire 4, we've been making dramatic changes to Mechanica, or today how it's called is Creo Simulate, by adding nonlinear materials. Now we can do large deformation with contact today, load histories. We have a new meshing type called a thin solid. That's fantastic. Performance-wise, going from Wildfire 5 to Creo 2, I can run things with half the memory, double the speed, with fantastic accuracy results. So if you haven't taken a look at Mechanica in a while, it's really a tool that really enhances Creo Parametric and gives you access to a phenomenal FEA tool. So yes, the answer is we've made a ton of enhancements to it and improvements to it in the past couple of releases.
I think it's true. There's just so many PTC products. It's easy to ask questions all over the place, and that's we could have a lot more webinars about this sort of thing. Here's a question from Matt Maringer. He asks, if I made some parts in Education Edition Pro E, is there any way to convert those to be compatible with Creo 2.0 for the purpose of viewing the part and able to copy it to a Creo file?
I mean, you can always make a interface file, like a step file or IGES file. There is a way to do it. It's just you have to. There's a few people at PTC that can do it. I'm not one of those people. So for some customers and some designs, we will convert them. So the question is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. We just don't make that available to every customer. Our education group has the ability to do that case by case. Mm-hmm. But by nature, though, yeah, it's not available.
Here's another migration question. This is from Rob Murray. He asks, how hard would it be to go from Wildfire 4 to Creo 2?
I don't think it's going to be any different, honestly. I think I think Wildfire 4 and Wildfire 5 are very similar. That I wouldn't see, besides the ribbon UI in drawing mode, that we've actually addressed quite a bit in Creo, because there's a couple of inefficiencies of it. I think that a Wildfire 4 and Wildfire 5 user are going to be very similar in their migration to Creo 2.
Okay, if you'll bear with me a second here, I've got to scan all these questions. There's a tremendous number of questions. This is another Freestyle question. How can we convert the concept model, or how can we use the concept model when we want to create a parametric model?
Yeah, that's a good question. You can always do an external inheritance and bring it in and kind of model around it if you want to do it that way. But otherwise, there's no, like, featureize button, which would be really cool, But that's there's no automatic method. You can bring in surface. You can open up and bring in some surfaces from that model in, possibly. Also, one thing I should keep in mind though, is that when you make a Freestyle feature, it's a surface. Okay, it's not a solid. It's a surface. So if you just leave it as a surface, then you can make your solid geometry around it, and kind of use it as a reference. Put it on a layer, do some parametric stuff, and then bring it back. And you can do it that way, I guess, would be my first inclination of how to answer that question.
Okay, we only have a couple more minutes here, but we have plenty of questions. Rob Murray asks, can you array parts in assembly mode?
I don't see why not. Yeah, as long as that part was...
That's a standard thing that's been available all along.
Yeah, I'm starting to think, is he trying to trick me? But no, I think that's perfectly fine. Arraying parts in assembly mode, mirroring parts in assembly mode, those things have been there for many years. Yeah.
Okay, and about the new interface, Don Riley asks, are the new ribbon bars used in simulation, mechanism, animation, or add-ons like EFX?
Yes, 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 and yes.
Oh, that was an easy answer, wasn't it?
EFX is a partner. I think that is too, though. I think so. It's across the board, obviously, in simulation, mechanism, cabling, all those have the ribbon UI.
Okay, and Matt Kennedy asks, will the config file work in Creo 2.0 as it does in Wildfire 5.0? For example, shortcuts and map keys.
You better test them. Most likely, a lot of them won't. I know people don't like that answer, but that's the honest answer, because the way those map keys and shortcuts were created and how they work in Wildfire 5 are different in Creo 2, because those menus and those options are not there. So a lot of map keys will have to be recreated. But then they all work super fast once you recreate them, but most of them will have to be recreated.
Very good. Well, that, I think, takes all our time. I want to point out that both Todd and I are available via email if you have questions or comments. I'm an independent person. I, of course, write about CAD technology of all different types, and Todd is the person who spends time in front of customers and sees real-world problems all the time. We want to thank you for coming. Todd, there may be another slide here. I'm not sure.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
There we go. This is the important thing. The important thing is to say thank you for all coming, and we'll have the webinar available online. We'll email you about it. And here is some information about Design World, and you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever. And we also have the website engineeringexchange.com, which is quite a fun website. So I want to thank you all for coming, And that will be the end of our webinar.
Okay. Thanks, Evan, for moderating, and thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.